Hi, I'm Dan Sosnoski, the editor-in-chief of Chiropractic Economics magazine. We're here at Parker Seminars, Las Vegas 2018. I'm joined today with Dr. Ray Foxworth. He's the founder and owner of ChiroHealthUSA, patient financing solution for doctors of chiropractic. Dr. Foxworth, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, appreciate the invitation.
All right, well, you're a specialist in a lot of areas. You do a lot of consulting and so forth. And one of the things that separates you from, I'd say, the average doctor is that you run a large, complex, multidisciplinary practice in a sort of integrated medical setting. And that situation must be exceedingly complicated with a lot of moving parts and pieces. We've noticed a trend in the industry from our surveys of doctors moving toward integrated practice, multidisciplinary, teaming up together, forming larger practices. As the size of a practice grows, do you have some tips for doctors who have to grapple with the complexity?
Sure. First of all, to clarify, our practice is on the campus of a spine center.
Yeah.
So in chiropractic, one of our favorite catchphrases is we're separate and distinct. So I am a partner in the development, but we literally do have on campus neurosurgery, orthopedic surgery, physical medicine rehab, physical therapy, pain management, as well as our clinic. And so their practice runs in their world, we run ours, but what we've noticed is just because we are part of an entity like that, you certainly can experience more scrutiny. And I heard a consultant say one time that a lot of people don't realize this, but healthcare is the second most regulated entity, only behind the environment.
That's right.
So there are challenges that we have. So my advice to any doctor, really, whether they're just getting out of school or whether they've been in practice 32 years like I am, get a coach, get a mentor, have someone help you to continue to grow professionally and also personally. After you've done this for so long, you think you've got it all figured out, and the reality is, I guess just like in football or other things, you can kind of drift away from the basics, and sometimes what you think is going on in your practice because it was going on 2 years ago is kind of drifted by the wayside. So that's been a big thing to me, is to keep a coach or have a very good mentor, someone who can guide you along the way and minimize that learning curve. The second thing I would have to say is probably been the biggest difference in my life in not only running my practice, but in managing our company, ChiroHealth. Is a couple of years ago I read a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. And in that book it talks about the entrepreneurial operating system. And so think about that as the operating system in your computer. It's how you run how your computer runs. And within that system, what Gino Wickman did, I think that was unique, was he read every business book that I've read and probably you've read, and he synthesized it in such a fashion that he turned it into a system that looks at your people, your data, your processes, your measurables. And so literally once a week I have a team meeting and I have a snapshot and a scorecard, and I can tell you exactly how my company, ChiroHealth, is doing or how the practice is doing. And so I would encourage doctors to consider looking at that model, because I don't care whether you're running a chiropractic practice or GM. It is the model or the best practices from all those business books wrapped into a system that really help you become more profitable, sleep better at night, and truly have confidence that you're doing all the right things and that you keep those things in place.
A systems-based approach.
It absolutely is. And that doesn't mean you have to be cookie cutter, because we don't do that well in chiropractic. But it really is about the business side of the practice. And that book and implementing it, we've been on that program for 3 years now. And we've experienced the most growth that we've ever had in both companies. So I'd highly recommend that. Get a coach, get a mentor, start looking at an operating system for your practice, and I would start with traction.
Sure. Some of the things you're talking about, we've noticed franchises have sort of cracked the code of write down your business procedures, train in them consistently, so the chiropractor does not have to be the center of every decision and the key driver of practice success or failure, but everyone can kind of participate. No one employee becomes integral to the success or failure of the practice. Those kinds of ways that they crack the code are lessons that the general DC can draw from.
Absolutely, and I will tell you, ironically, my practice grew the fastest when I stepped out of it, which is ironic, but and it kind of hurt my ego a little bit. But the reality was, just by nature, I've never just practiced. I've either practiced and been on the Board of Health or been involved with the VA or the association. And while I love seeing patients, the reality was I was holding my practice back, and so it was a doctor-dependent practice.
Yeah.
And until you really start looking at your practice as a business and running it as a business, quite frankly, for those that are my age and or hope to be my age one day, there will come a point where you want to be able to back off a little bit. And I can honestly tell you, the joke in my office was, Doc, we have these hour-long staff meetings once a week, and they're about 45 minutes too long. Everything's running okay, everything's working okay. You can look at the spreadsheet. Can we use that time for something else?
The meeting is the problem.
The meeting is the problem, absolutely.
Gotcha.
So, that is the surest way to get some of your life back, is to put systems in place and have it run. And quite frankly, it runs better when I'm not there than when I am, because I'm a complicating factor.
All right. Well, when it comes to billing and coding and the patient payments and that end of the business, what used to be, I think, a more simple system has gotten increasingly not both more complicated, but also there's greater uncertainty, whether it's a CMS, a third-party payers, state exchanges. A lot of things are up in the air. We don't have a lot of clarity. We don't know how things are going to be a year from now. Given complexity, given uncertainty, do you have any tips or advice for chiropractors for 2018, which you see coming up in the months ahead?
You know, as we started 10 years ago, and we are celebrating our 10th anniversary as a company, I will tell you that the thing that has, I guess, gotten my eye the most is how little the average doctor, not just chiropractor, but the average doctor realizes about regulation. You know, when I went into practice 32 years ago, all I had to worry about was my board of examiners.
Okay.
They could pull my license if I did something wrong. It was pretty clear cut. Then I signed provider agreements. There's another layer of rules and regulations.
Okay.
And then there's my Department of Insurance. There's CMS, Medicare, and then the OIG.
Okay.
And the challenge is, and a lot of doctors don't realize this, there are things that your board says are okay that are in violation with your provider agreement.
Right.
And things in your provider agreement that are not consistent with what Medicare or the OIG says.
Gotcha.
And as I jokingly say, sometimes after reading all this and becoming a medical compliance expert, it makes me want to be a Walmart greeter. Well, the problem is Walmart's not hiring greeters anymore.
Right.
So the doctors need to understand that there are layers of regulations. This is one of the most regulated entities that, other than the environment. And so they need to they need to spend some time and understand what they can and can't do, should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And our focus has been in the financial area, and just to clarify, we don't actually get involved in financing care for patients.
Right.
But the reality is, in our profession, you know, doctors of chiropractic have such big hearts, we'll give away the candy store.
That's
and
not
so,
unusual.
well, it's not. And it's also one of the challenges that when patients call our office and a question as simple as how much does it cost to see the doctor, we force our staff to go into what I call the chiropractic two-step. We dance all around that. Why? Because in our world, we have our workers' comp fee, our PI fee, our cash fee, our mother, father, sister, brother fee, our buy 10 visits, get one free fee. Well, that's not really legal. You should have one fee, charge everyone the same. That doesn't mean everybody pays the same, but you should only offer discounts if you're under contract. So that's why Blue Cross, Aetna, Cigna can all pay us a different fee, and it's perfectly legal. But if you are offering discounts to, say, Medicare patients,
Right.
and there's not a contract in place, it can be considered an inducement. If you are giving discounts that are above and beyond your bookkeeping cost, that can be considered a dual fee schedule.
Right.
So rather than struggle with what are all these rules and regulations, I looked for a model that would allow me to offer discounts to patients. And Daniel, you may have heard the story from one of the articles that I wrote, but the reason I started ChiroHealth was not because I wanted to run a statewide network. It was because I had a cash patient who ended up in an auto accident. I billed my higher fees. She comes back a few weeks later, literally taps me on the chest and says, "It's guys like you ripping off insurance companies that keep my family from affording health care." And I said, "No, it's guys like me that bend over backwards to help folks like you, but I made a horrible mistake. I never let you know what my actual fee was or that I was giving you a discount." And I got reported to my state attorney general.
Wow.
And that's what made me look at why is it okay for Blue Cross, Aetna, Cigna to all pay different, and it is because of the contractual network discounts.
Yeah, what they call the charge master.
It is. You know, in a hospital, they call it the charge master. That's how they know to charge you $27 for a Tylenol. But in our world, it really is. Our staff can't answer that simple question because it depends on who's paying the bill.
Right.
And if you plug in a DMPO, that's called a discount medical plan organization, really what it does is it makes all of that craziness just go away.
Right. And doesn't that help you deal with the situation of patients for a doctor shopping? They're calling for chiropractors and they want to know what is an adjustment going to run me?
Absolutely. Right? And that is, you know, that's one of the things that we measure in our office, and we actually monitor the number of new patient calls versus the ones that showed up.
Yeah.
And before we plugged in this model, patients would call, our staff would have to do the chiropractic two-step, and either they would hear click, or the patient would schedule as a new patient and not show up. And when we got to the point where we could say, really the script for this, if you will, is how much is the first visit? Well, Ms. Jones, it really depends on what the doctor finds necessary. It could also depend on what your insurance company requires. And you're quiet, and the patient will tell you, I either have health insurance or I don't. And if they do, fine, have the insurance conversation. But if they say I don't have health insurance, not a problem. That's why we're part of a network. You can join it. It's this amount for a year. It covers you and your family. And no matter what doc does today, the most your visit is $175. Do you prefer mornings or afternoons? So we removed what I call the let's make a deal and having fees based on who's paying the bill completely. And so now I don't care if it's a patient that's calling to shop or an auditor. And the reality is, we know for a fact from the consultants we work with, there are a number of doctors that end up with complaints and audits and fines because of a simple phone call, and the staff said, they ask how much is a massage or an adjustment? Well, it's $75 if it's insurance, it's $50 if it's cash.
Gotcha.
Well, if I'm an auditor, guess who I'm going to see?
Gotcha.
The one that's got the dual fee schedule, absolutely. So it really does simplify things at the front desk, simplifies things for the doctors, and it really lets you practice with more peace of mind.
I got you. More simplicity, more clarity, more
transparency.
And transparency.
Absolutely.
And that will solve a lot of the challenges.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, hey, Dr. Foxworth, that is illuminating. You're always a font of information. And we're so glad to feature your thoughts in chiropractic economics.
I certainly appreciate that, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.